In the grimy near future, the world is divided into two sides, one abundant, the other scarce. A selection process lies between them. At the age of 20, each person has one chance to be in the 3% to go to the other side known as the offshore. Michelle, as well as everyone eligible, gets notified of the start of the 104th selection process. Everyone wants to get to the offshore, live a better life, forget about poverty. But envy and resentment has created a resistance group to abolish the difference between them, called the cause. Excited to be chosen, people are marching towards the facility for the selection process. At the start, everyone is checked for any threats and puts on fresh clothes. The game master, Ezekiel, starts the selection process, highlighting how lucky everyone is to have a shot at being in the top 3%. Using the ear chips that also serve as an ID, Ezekiel calls out everyone's name. The highlighted few are Joanna, Alex, and Fernando. After the presentation, the game master is informed that he and the selection process will have an evaluation this year, by Elaine. After confirming her identity, he becomes furious and confronts the Superior Council who didn't notify him about the monitoring. She reminds Ezekiel that, given the first ever murder on the offshore and his responsibility for the selection of individuals to join them, there is a need to re-evaluate his methods. He assures the council member that he is the only one who can run the process and will prove it in this selection. Ezekiel opts for a mental reset, filling a water tank and immersing his face. He exhales slowly, resisting the urge to breathe. As he finally lifts his head, determined, he is prepared to demonstrate the efficacy of his methods. The initial phase of the process involves individual interviews. If the offshore interviewer perceives any deficiency in a candidate, they are promptly eliminated. The interviewers pose sensitive questions. For instance, Joanna is queried about her hygiene, to which she responds nonchalantly. In Michelle's case, her interviewer makes a superficial advance before swiftly challenging her with a complex question. If all A's are B's, but not all B's are C's, is it possible to have an A that is also a C? With a mere 5 seconds to answer, many candidates get flustered. Instead of addressing the question directly, some attempt to showcase their worth, leading to instant elimination. Having anticipated this opportunity their entire lives, some candidates resort to memorized answers, but the interviewers quickly discern this tactic. Even after being informed that their responses are sufficient, some candidates persist in rambling, inadvertently sabotaging their chances and ultimately facing elimination. To identify followers of the cause, candidates are specifically questioned about it, and anyone suspected of collaborating with the cause is promptly eliminated. In essence, the interviewers apply pressure to induce candidates to crack, seeking any reason to eliminate them during the initial stage. Under pressure, Fernando reveals that his motivation to pass the selection process stems from a desire to avoid becoming like his father, the pastor. Joanna is so confident in herself, that even when called the worst candidate, she responds with him being the worst interviewer, triggering him, but passing the initial stage. Michelle's brother participated in the selection process last year, but the interviewer doesn't disclose the outcome. To progress, Michelle is instructed to sever any emotional ties with him, compelling her to give up a necklace crafted by her brother. After successfully passing this test, the interviewer praises her for the decision, revealing that her brother had passed away the previous year. In the meantime, Ezekiel receives word about a captured member of the cause, George. During the interrogation, George confessed that among this year's candidates, there is an undercover operative from the cause. However, they don't know the infiltrator's name yet. A woman navigates through several concealed doors, a key figure in the cause. They gather to talk about the recent capture of George, expressing concern over whether he possessed critical information that could jeopardize their mission. The man responsible for him confesses that George was aware that they sent an infiltrator to the selection process, but is unaware of their name. Kasia, the woman leading the interrogation, informs Ezekiel that George is resisting, but she is sure he will crack. No one can withstand their torture methods. As the successful candidates rejoice in their progression to the next stage, the sounds of grieving from the eliminated candidates permeate the air upstairs. Some among the unsuccessful can't fathom their failure, deciding that desperate actions like jumping to their death is a better outcome. Ezekiel quickly goes to soothe the anxious candidates and urges them to continue with the tests. While in line for the next challenge, Joanna astutely observes that one of the competitors has a fake registration implant. Her deduction is based on the number of stitches, as the legitimate offshore implants typically use only 3 stitches when done correctly. He feigns ignorance, but is anxious his fake implant might fail. When he is scanned for the first time, the scan fails, but the second time, after a short delay that feels like an eternity, his name, Raphael, pops up and he is let through. Just like that. The subsequent test is straightforward, assessing their spatial awareness and understanding of geometry. With only the pieces provided in the center, candidates must assemble as many cubes as possible within a 3-minute time frame. Those unable to construct at least 9 cubes will face elimination. Michelle quickly perceives Fernando's struggle and extends a helping hand. As the test approaches its conclusion, the design ensures someone will be eliminated, given the limited pieces available. Fernando easily manages to assemble 9 cubes, but just as the test clock expires, Raphael slyly takes a cube from someone nearby. While this action is a form of cheating, it remains within the boundaries, as the only rule explicitly mentioned is to have 9 cubes when the clock runs out. As the inspector makes rounds, checking whether each candidate has assembled 9 cubes, Michelle falls short. However, just before the inspector arrives, Fernando ingeniously combines all 8 of Michelle's cubes into one large cube, effectively adding an extra unit and enabling her to meet the requirement. In this clever maneuver, she managed to pass the test. Joanna confidently showcases her skills by assembling an impressive total of 11 cubes within the brief time allocated. Ezekiel is happy with the results, but Elaine finds his methods questionable. Following the second test, during the lunch break, a girl queries one of the self-assured candidates with the family name Alvarez. Rumor has it that the Alvarez family consistently succeeds in the selection process, and Alvarez asserts that they are simply ingenious. Michelle expresses gratitude to Fernando for his assistance just as Raphael enters the cafeteria. The room buzzes with whispers about Raphael's actions and how he managed to pass despite his questionable tactics. Raphael, unapologetic, asserts that anyone would go to great lengths to succeed, emphasizing that no one in the room objected to his actions. To further make his point, Raphael challenges a random person, asking if they would silently accept defeat. The response is a violent confrontation, earning Raphael a physical beating. Joanna, intrigued by Raphael, approaches him and commends his craftiness. Now, instead of viewing him as a cheater, most see him as a victim. Joanna proposes an alliance to Raphael. She warns him though, that if he betrays her, she will reveal to everyone that his registration is fake. Elaine confronts Ezekiel about the selection process and questions his satisfaction with the results. Ezekiel confidently asserts that his results are the best. However, Elaine shifts the conversation to Ezekiel's wife that passed away, catching him off guard. As she pushes his emotional buttons, the interviewer, Denise, who had questioned the boy that tragically ended his life, enters the room. Denise, visibly affected, explains that she followed the protocol, but Ezekiel is more concerned about her emotional state. He discloses that the boy took his own life out of shame and weakness. Despite Denise tearing up, Ezekiel leads her to a water tank, hinting at understanding her own worth. He forcefully submerges her face underwater and holds her down. Elaine tries to intervene, but Ezekiel remains resolute. After the intense experience, Ezekiel pulls Denise out and explains that he subjects himself to the same ordeal, as a reminder that their work involves matters of life and death. Denise, initially startled, slowly walks away. Elaine gives Ezekiel a judgmental look, but Denise returns to thank him, expressing gratitude for the valuable lessons she has learned in such a short time. Kasia contacts Ezekiel, sharing a lead that implicates one of 2 candidates. Michelle and Runa are tasked with discreetly following one of the inspectors involved in the selection process. Taking charge, Kasia covers both girls' eyes with a black paste, creating a temporary blindfold effect. Guiding them away from the main building, she carefully removes the paste and seats them down. The girls remain confused about the situation. Kasia unveils the connection, revealing that both candidates reside on the same block. The information suggests an infiltrator from their block, and one of the 2 girls is working with the cause, they just don't know which one. Kasia has 3 minutes to determine who, or both of them die. As the girls start to panic, the idea of this being another test crosses their minds, but it quickly becomes evident that it's not the case. They begin blaming each other, but Kasia isn't there to listen to them argue, she needs a confession. Just as Kasia leaves to speak with Ezekiel, Michelle pleads with Runa to confess and spare her life, but both ferociously deny any association with the cause. With time run out, Michelle proposes a desperate plan to Runa. When Kasia returns, they should both attack her, 2 against 1, as their only chance of survival. Runa agrees, and they await Michelle's signal. Just as Kasia reappears, Michelle experiences a flashback. She is the true member of the cause. The necklace was a decoy, part of her training to deceive the interview process, even faking tears. Michelle signals Runa, who attacks Kasia and gets shot in the process. Runa goes for the gun, but Ezekiel intervenes, taking control of the situation. Ezekiel apologizes to Michelle for the ordeal and Kasia escorts Michelle back to the main area, emphasizing that this stays between them. Michelle, torn by the loss of her friend Runa, breaks down before rejoining the other participants. When she returns, Fernando questions her about the incident, but she remains silent, carrying the weight of the tragic turn of events. At the tender age of 6, Fernando diligently prepared for the upcoming selection process, celebrating small victories in his self-imposed challenges. His joy takes a turn when, in a moment of excitement, he trips over in his wheelchair, a stark reminder of his physical limitations. Before moving on to the next task, a mandatory physical examination awaits all participants. Despite whispers circulating about Fernando's ingenious rescue of Michelle, his spirit crumbles when he's labeled a crippled genius. Meanwhile, Elaine engages in a strategic conversation with a superior council member regarding Ezekiel's questionable decision to pass a cheater in one of the tests. Determined to uncover flaws in Ezekiel's process, Elaine seeks to gather evidence and potentially overthrow him from his role as the manager of the selection process. However, finding tangible evidence proves to be a challenge, and they know they need something more concrete to execute their plan. Whispers circulate about Runa's potential affiliation with the cause, and when questioned, Michelle dismisses the rumors, stating that Runa has been eliminated. However, Alvarez remains unconvinced, insisting that Runa couldn't have been removed. Michelle's attempts to quash the conversation prove futile as the doubts linger, refusing to fade away. Fernando saw Michelle walk with Runa away earlier. He has his suspicions. Approaching the physical examination, Fernando is optimistic, but his hopes are crushed when the light turns red, accompanied by a blaring alarm. His worst nightmare realized. A doctor rolls him away from the scene. In the medical room, a doctor assesses Fernando's leg sensations to find no response. Placed on his stomach, he receives an injection of a serum that seems to take effect instantly. Upon re-evaluation, Fernando experiences sensation in his legs for the first time. Although the feeling is temporary, the advanced nature of their treatment gives hope that after a full course, he might regain the ability to walk. But first, he has to pass. In the next test, the candidates are divided into groups and enter a meticulously crafted room. As the inspector arrives, he instructs them to analyze the scene and collectively determine what happened to the woman in blue. The challenge is to reach a unanimous conclusion. While thinking, an announcement echoes through the room, revealing that one group has been eliminated for providing an incorrect answer. The pressure intensifies, compelling the remaining candidates to think carefully before reaching a decision. Ezekiel shares with Elaine that over half of the candidates typically get eliminated due to a lack of deductive reasoning skills in this task. Meanwhile, the candidates scour the room, careful not to overlook any detail as they try to meet the demands of the challenge. Just as a candidate is about to taste the meat from the plate, Fernando intervenes, proclaiming that he has cracked the riddle. The woman in blue, he deduces, has been poisoned by the hostess. Examining the dynamics, Fernando points out two couples present, the hosts and the guests. Clues like rings and dirt on shoes help distinguish between them. Both men rise to assist the woman, but she gazes directly at one man, not her husband, but her lover. Fernando reveals the twisted plot. The woman in blue was having an affair, known to the hostess, who poisoned her as an act of revenge. This explains the sauce only on the woman in blue's plate. The group praises Fernando's genius deduction, and Alvarez prepares to submit their answer when Rafael interjects. Rafael challenges Fernando's theory, asserting that, given the offshore markings on the individuals, the motive couldn't be adultery or murder. Instead, he proposes that the woman wasn't poisoned but rather suffered an allergic reaction to silver. Rafael points out that everyone has metal items, like watches or necklaces, except for the woman in blue. Even her ring is made of glass, and her necklace is crafted from wood. The cutlery on the table, however, is made of silver, triggering an allergic reaction that obstructs her air passage. In debunking the poisoning theory, Rafael highlights that the hostess has the sauce on her napkin as well. The woman's focused gaze at the other man, rather than her husband, is explained by the fact that he's a doctor with an abundance of medical books in a drawer. Meanwhile, the hostess's composed demeanor is attributed to her blindness, evident by the book for blind people she possesses and the lack of lamp on her side of the table. Rafael steps forward to submit the answer, and reluctantly, Fernando acknowledges the validity of Rafael's theory. Their deduction is correct, prompting a collective sigh of relief. However, the instructor mentions that someone didn't pass. One candidate is eliminated for failing to contribute at all. As those who passed enjoy a lunch break, Rafael approaches Fernando, taunting him for his earlier incorrect deduction. He mockingly emphasizes that, unlike the previous scenario where Fernando played the hero, this time luck was not on his side. Two candidates who successfully passed the challenging test discuss their stroke of luck. As they share their relief at passing the difficult examination, Joanna observes the guy, Lucas, trying to flirt with the girl. Undeterred, he approaches Joanna, attempting casual conversation, but she remains observant. Joanna, perhaps intrigued or amused, teases him playfully before instructing him to follow her. From excitement or whatever, in the bathroom they get it going. In the cafeteria, Michelle approaches Fernando, who confides in her about the possibility of walking again. Michelle expresses genuine happiness for him, though Fernando seems puzzled by her enthusiasm. He grapples with an existential crisis, realizing how swiftly everything can change. Despite living his entire life in a wheelchair, Fernando joined the process not necessarily with the desire to walk again, but rather to prove to everyone what he is capable of. Ezekiel hands over the next test management to Elaine, trusting her with the task. Seizing the opportunity, Elaine spies on him and enters the room he just left. Meanwhile, Ezekiel changes his outfit to blend in with the local community. The next test is straightforward. With 7 candidates and only 6 coins in the bag, they must decide within 15 minutes which one of them should be eliminated. Failure to reach a decision will result in the elimination of all candidates. Raphael uses the first come, first served strategy, already securing a coin for himself. Alvarez puts him on the ground and forces him to drop it, placing all the coins back in the bag. Now they can decide who goes. Meanwhile, in the room Elaine entered, she discovers a vast viewing platform, gaining access to restricted cameras. Realizing the cameras were tampered with, she resets them and starts tracking Ezekiel, who is in disguise. As the candidates face the ticking clock with 10 minutes left, Michelle wants to vote off Raphael because of the cheating, but Raphael points out that none of them would be here if not for him, emphasizing his value for the upcoming group test. Meanwhile, Fernando pushes to eliminate Joanna, sensing her lack of commitment to the process. Joanna subtly signals to Raphael, reminding him of his fake implant. In an unexpected move, Raphael starts defending Joanna, but the group finds his sudden change of stance suspicious. He just makes a point that she's a valuable member to the group and he would like to eliminate Fernando, because it's obvious. With the looming disadvantage of Fernando's physical limitations for the potential next test, the group contemplates voting him out. Fernando, seemingly defenseless, shifts the narrative by revealing that the doctor in the physical examination told him he could walk if he gets to the offshore. Playing on emotions, he pleads with the group not to take away this life-changing chance. Michelle acknowledges the unfairness, leading Fernando to suggest leaving the decision to luck through drawing names. Despite Raphael's protests, the group decides on this approach. Alvarez tears up a girl's scarf, and the tension rises as they draw strips. It ultimately comes down to Alvarez and Joanna, with Joanna drawing the shortest strip, signaling her elimination. Upon the inspector's arrival, the group notifies him of their decision. As they exit, each member grabs a coin from the bag. However, before leaving, Lucas teases Joanna and tries to grab a coin from the bag, only to find it's empty. Joanna reveals her coin to the inspector, resulting in Lucas' elimination instead. When everyone was handing back the coins, Joanna never handed hers back. As the group is moping around before the next test, they notice Joanna walking towards them, puzzled as to what happened to Lucas. Meanwhile, Elaine remains on Ezekiel's trail, determined to uncover his secrets. While trailing him, Ezekiel notices a nearby camera resetting and quickly evades detection, dropping valuable items in the process and then picking them up. Elaine loses track of him amid the chaos. Back at the selection process building, Ezekiel and Elaine talk about the upcoming test. The atmosphere is tense, with clear signs of mutual mistrust between them. Ezekiel manipulates his own footage to avoid recognition. Elaine reports his actions to the Superior Council, pointing out the erasure of security footage and image edits during his inland visits. Despite her findings, Elaine lacks concrete proof. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this.